Let's begin with the spirit of thankfulness. Thankfulness is wonderful because it can move us out of our everyday experience. It can reconnect us to those parts of our heart and of our mind and of our central core that are relational and that have profound meaning to us. And that's such a wonderful way to begin praying. So let us stop for a second and begin by finding 3 things that we appreciate for which we can thank God. 3 things, 3 ways that God has been part of our life that fill us with gratitude at this point. And second, let us find 3 things that you can be grateful for that you've witnessed in someone else or received from someone else. And finally, what are 3 things that you can appreciate in yourself? Tell your mind that right now it has no job to do. Its only activity at this point for the next few moments is to rest, to be still. The spiritual path can't be learned. No one can teach you about the spiritual path. It can only be experienced, and it's experienced in life. Our life experiences are the pattern which helps us to see cohesively our flavor of spiritual life, our flavor of holiness. So, as you looked at these images, immediately one of them may have brought to mind a memory or an image or a feeling as a response. Maybe you cringed, maybe you felt understood, maybe you were drawn to it for some reason. So these 4 images basically are showing you 4 different aspects of life, and there obviously are many more. So what experience in you right now is the most important or the most confusing or the most frustrating? What experience in your life is rising to the surface? The pattern of our spiritual life, of each of our spiritual lives, is the stuff of our daily lives. And that's why everybody's spiritual life looks a bit different. We all start from the same place and are heading to the same place. We begin with our baptism, that infusion of grace. We're heading towards that point where we are full of God's grace. We are divinized, as the Eastern Fathers would say. We become Christ. We're Christified, as other saints would call it. But along the way, each of us has a slightly different path. We have a slightly different interpretation of all the gospel passages, because each gospel passage sifts down into the reality of my daily life and experience, which differs from yours. And in that beautiful way, Jesus really brings about so many unique faces of himself on this earth, so many different voices that are his, so many different services that are his, so many different virtues that are all his, but are displayed in so many beautiful ways, in different ways among all of us. And this pattern of our spiritual life, which is different for all of us, shows the spiritual truth that's at the core of each person. And that spiritual truth is a bit unique, and it's a bit it's very powerful in how it kind of brings all the chaotic and all the disparate elements of our life together. There's a wonderful book called My Ideal by Father Emil Newbert, and this is just one sentence out of that book. The sentence is from the mouth of Jesus: strive to resemble my mother as I resembled her. I want to think like, so Mary's central core, what was that? And I thought, Mary initially intended to marry Saint Joseph, and they probably were intending to live together in a virginal way. And when the angel appeared, the angel Gabriel, and announced to Mary that she was to be the mother of the Messiah, her plans changed and her vision of herself changed. And her sense of what her spiritual path would be was different. And in fact, it became certainly very unknown to her at that point. So if we look at what happened in her life, the Annunciation, then the Nativity in Bethlehem in the stable, the presentation of the child Jesus in the temple, where it was announced to her that a sword would pierce her heart, the flight into Egypt, the finding of the child Jesus in the temple, where she left kind of pondering what her son had said to her. The wedding feast of Cana, where Jesus said, like, what business is it of mine that they ran out of wine? And she stood there and said, do whatever my son tells you. Where she took that stand, she stepped up and took that stand of faith. Calvary, when she stood beneath her child, her son who was dying. And Pentecost, where she stood as a mother of all the apostles. And I was trying to look at what was characterizing all these disparate events of her life. What was her spiritual truth? And what came to me was that her spiritual truth was very simple. It was yes. It was fiat. Every single moment in her life, and I just gave like 8 highlights that we know about, but certainly there are many, many, many regular daily stuff that she lived and endured and gave and offered and blessed others with. Her whole thing was fiat. And so her spirit, living from that spiritual truth, is what made the whole of her experience coherent. It was a true path to holiness that she lived, and that path became a path of light. And Mary didn't get diverted from that path, but we also have a path to holiness that has a unique word, a unique foundation, a unique a guiding light, a unique kind of of corral, a foundation that pulls everything together. And it's when we kind of get diverted from that that we begin to suffer. So as we look back at these photos here, which represent beauty, which represent new starts in life or restarts, or life that's coming out of sorrow, we have here in the middle just the regular stuff of life, uh, our eating, the way we love each other, the way we serve each other, our jobs. And on the right, we have something that represents the hectic, chaotic moments, or the moments outside of the home. And the central picture could represent the life inside the home with our family or community in which we live. What if we lived all of that from a yes, as Mary, that resembling of her could in a certain way be living everything out of a yes, a fiat of our own. But each of us also has a different, unique word, desire, path, that kind of directs us into what we're going to do, why we're going to do things, and how we do them. So let's just take a few moments to let our eyes rest on this image and just begin to pay attention to the images that it might raise within us, the memories, the senses, the feeling, the felt sense that we have within ourselves. What is stirring? And let's give it time to stir. The spiritual life, it grows under intensity. It grows under presence. It grows under attention. It's like the 9 months of a child in a womb. When we give something that much time to grow, then a beautiful child or a beautiful path results in that. And so spending some time just in being aware of what's happening within us is a powerful way to make our spiritual life grow in intensity. And it could be that we don't feel very spiritual, or we don't feel very holy, or we can't get down very far. That's kind of what it feels like. And if that is so, then be very gentle with yourself, very gentle, because life is very fast. We have a lot of responsibilities. We live in a world where there's a lot of worry, fear, pain, violence, speed, concerns, and we need to be gentle with that, because all of those things that we live create like a crust. I don't know if that's a very good word, or a hardened layer, a mask, what have you, over the fragility and the vulnerability of our heart. And so it's really important to be gentle with that reality and just to say, can I stay for a while with the hardness or the callousness or the sense of not being able to touch my own core, my own soul? Is it okay for me just to be with it? And I invite you to ask yourself that question and just to be with it right now for a few moments, very gently. And you might want to take a couple deep breaths and just let it out and almost drop underneath that layer. Drop underneath that protective layer that's protecting your heart. Because underneath all these realities of our life that are represented by these 4 pictures is something really beautiful and really profound. And it's your soul. It's, it's your heart. It's the yearning that you have for intimacy with God. That is who you are. That is who you are. That's your spiritual DNA. That's where your spiritual path proceeds. That's your place of real connection with God. And that's the place where eventually you'll discover that one word that means everything to you in your relationship with God. And it may be the word yes, and it can't not be the word yes. But for each of us, there's another little flavor of yes that's really important. For example, the poverty of heart, or purity of heart, or a meekness of heart, an obedience of heart, a willingness of heart. Whatever it may be, that's like the spiritual DNA you want to touch and find and know and claim. You want to yearn for what you are, not for what you are not. And all these things represented by these pictures divert your attention from that inner place. They divert your attention only if you live them on a surface level. If you live out of that top layer that's kind of like, it's hardened, it's unperceptive, it's like a door and not a window. When you live out of that surface space, all these things then do become a diversion. But when you live all these realities of life from that inner word, just as Mary lived all of her realities of life from that inner word of yes, then everything makes sense. Everything is of value. Everything brings grace. So in the end, nothing can get in the way of the path of the heart. Not ourselves, not circumstances, neither failures nor sin. Nothing can get in the way. So what are the images that are presenting themselves to you right now? And these images will have a felt sense. That sense reverberates in your emotions. It reverberates in thoughts that run through your head, or judgments and beliefs. But it also reverberates very simply in the way you physically carry that image. So what is your felt sense in relation to that image? Is there a word or a memory or the strain of a song or poem that image makes you think of? Deep in our heart, we have a stance to the Lord. So you might ask yourself, for example, deep in your heart, are you a child in relation to the Lord? Is that how a part of you relates to Him? Or are you a bride? Are you a brother or a sister? A son or a daughter? Are you a mother, a servant, a handmaid in relation to Him? Just receive these gifts of the heart. When you think of the ocean, you can just, the immensity of the ocean, and we're just like a tiny drop of vinegar lost in the immensity of the ocean. Just allow that drop to dissolve, to be carried on the waves, to allow itself to be taken over by the beauty and the glory of the Lord, so that our heart is swept clean, that there are no reasons and memories, no fears, expectations, demands, or condemnation. There is no commentary. There is only the splendid mystery of a possibility, a future, the do not fear of the angel, the yes of the handmaid, the silent pondering, the sorrowing certainty of faith. Here's a final little prayer to Mary. It's from the book Harp of Glory, and it is an alphabetical hymn of praise for the ever-blessed Virgin Mary from the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So we pray, My Lady Mary, Maker of peace, who have always been a stranger to the noise of argument and squabble, cleanse the defilement of my flesh, be it as red as a berry or as black as a crow, and reconcile my soul to Him who formed and fashioned it. My Lady Mary, who fashioned Him who fashioned all, may your blessings never cease to accumulate all around me as gifts. Amen. For our videos for May, which we've chosen to kind of focus your development in holiness, we chose these four. The first is a meditation by Sister Carmen Christie on the words, "Do not be afraid, I am with you." These words are in all of our chapels, and they're meant to be a way of life. And Sister Carmen Christie shows how you yourself can make these words a way of life. We also have a video on Secrets of the Spirit by Jeanette, And she takes the writings of Luis Martinez and really kind of breaks apart some of the very profound elements that he has for the spiritual life. Sister Marie Paul Curley has a wonderful little meditation on how to meditate on God's love. And holiness should bring us to joy. Holiness is meant to bring us to that place where we're united and one with God, where we almost become God with a little g, or we become Christified, we become other Christ. And that's such a beautiful and wonderful, splendid way of living life. And so, but sometimes our fear and our inability to connect with God's love for us makes it difficult for us to experience that wonderful part of holiness. So she presents a wonderful meditation on how to meditate on God's love. And finally, I have a little meditation on Lord, let me see you. May you have a blessed May. God bless you.